Jake, what are you doing? Who are these tiny little people?
Just you wait and see. Are we recording?
We are recording.
Oh yeah.
These are not Warhammer figures.
Don't give the game away.
Oh,
no. You know that.
No, cut this.
I was hoping that we would have one team over here and then the other team over there, but I like these two kind of fighting in the center. That's a fun concept. And then this one's like blocking. Oh. What are these, by the way?
These things?
Yeah, what game is this
I
from?
don't know. It's your people.
This is literally yours.
Oh, it's mine? Oh, these are... Jesus.
Sorry.
These are these are D&D pieces.
These are...
Yeah. To, just be little bad guys and stuff.
Oh, I love that. I'll give the gray side some more so they seem more even. There we go. All right, here's a tape measure.
Okay.
Do you have a couple D6s?
Yes.
The heaviest D6s in the world. We love that. Can we get audio of that thunk real quick? There we go. That's a meaty D6 roll for me.
And that's also going to be a 1. Do we want to use that roll?
Oh, I think we're ways off from doing any rolls.
Oh, okay. I just need to have them ready. All right.
You just need to have them ready, and you have a tape measure. And I realize that this is like maybe not great podcast content, but in the grim darkness of the far future, there is no good podcast content. Only war. Hey there, Harvester Tillers.
Welcome to another Flashlight, where we take a deep dive into a different tabletop game system. I'm Production Master Reilly.
And I'm Dungeon Inspector Jake. This week, we're learning about the venerable minis wargame, Warhammer 40k.
Let's roll initiative.
With those chunky metal dice.
All right, they're gold.
They're gold. They're solid gold dice.
Yep.
All right, I thought it would be cool, and maybe stretching the limits of what we can do in an audio medium, to just try doing one move in the Warhammer 40k system. So we have this whole table set up with some.
Okay.
Yeah.
Before we get started, what is Warhammer 40k, Jake?
I was gonna get into that after we tried doing a move in it.
Okay. Oh, my bad.
It's totally fine. Yeah. But
let's do a move.
Sorry. What'd you say?
We're good.
I completely missed what you said. I'm sorry, dude.
I'm messing with your format and I will stop.
Oh, no, it's totally fine.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. Now I feel like a monster. Yeah, Warhammer 40k is a minis war game that revolves a lot around the physical placement of units on a board. And in this case, we are going to try having one of these characters that we've placed use the psychic power smite. Which one of your guys do you think can do smite? Which one of these looks like they have psychic powers to you?
Oh, psychic powers.
Yeah.
I was gonna say this guy could totally smite with an axe. But
I love that concept.
Yeah.
Cool. And okay, so that one is going to target the closest visible enemy within 18 inches. This is what we need the tape measure for. Is there a visible enemy within 18 inches?
Yes.
Cool. Do you want to measure that?
Yeah, where did the...
It's right in front of you.
Oh, okay. Okay. This 6 inches away is the closest enemy.
Absolutely.
Like to smite him.
Hell yes. I'm going to get you to roll me 2 D6s.
All right. Oh, 6.
Yes.
Oh.
That one is cocked on the cables.
4. I got a 10.
Awesome. This move has a warp charge value of 5. So you passed that. You have now manifested smite. And this enemy over here, the closest visible enemy, roll me a d6 to see how many mortal wounds they just got.
All right. 6.
Oh my god, they just got 3 mortal wounds! Oh, things aren't looking good for this guy over here with a little griffin on its shield. I don't know if these were really Warhammer pieces. That's how moves work in Warhammer.
All right.
So, do you want to try to counter it, or should we talk a little bit about how the game works first, maybe?
Let's talk about how the game works.
Yeah, sure. This is Warhammer 40K. It's probably the most popular minifig based war game. After our conversation last week with Sam, I got really excited about the idea of like a bunch of minis on an actual 3D set, and it turns out that Reilly has actually played Warhammer 40K before. Yeah.
I have played Warhammer Original, not 40K.
Oh, wow.
So it's a fantasy version, and me and my brothers, when we were little, got a couple sets. We had orcs and people. And so with Warhammer, you get the minifigs, but you have to glue and assemble them and then take a tiny paintbrush and paint all of them.
And they're tiny.
They are very tiny. Again, good radio. It's like the figures are about 2 inches tall. Right. Like, so we build all of them. They're extremely expensive and very tedious to put together, but like that's honestly like half the fun of the game. We never really played with the actual mechanics. We just build figures, paint them, like fun, use it as an arts project, and then just like have a giant battlefield.
And they do look very cool.
They do look very cool, yeah. But yeah, that is my experience with Warhammer, which is not in the mechanical sense.
That's valid.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the minis look cool. I don't have the manual dexterity for these like 1:60 scale models, personally. But if I did, I would try to put some together. I guess Chris, who we're going to be talking to in a couple weeks, is very into painting minis and has the manual dexterity for it. Ooh. Yeah, they turn out so well. But yeah, this version, Warhammer 40K, which is as you said, is not the real fantasy one. It's kind of set in this like grimdark, far future. There's like a massive, sinister human empire, but there's also like skeleton androids and hive minds, and are also just orcs, and there's chaos gods. Like there's a lot of just fantasy stuff happening. And like this world has like deep lore. There's literally hundreds of novels. And they all have names like Blood of Sanguinius, The Man Flayer, and there's like so many comic series with names like Damnation Crusade. I feel like we could actually do an entire series of flashlights that's just a deep dive into Warhammer 40K lore. Yeah, I mean, I don't think either of us knows enough about the game to do so. But the real distinctive part of the game is the minis, right? As you mentioned, they're like, a couple inches tall, and then you're playing on a set that's like the size of a table. Mm-hmm. It's like very literally a tabletop game. You measure the distance between everything in inches, and then you kind of multiply by 60 to get what that conceptually would be in the real world. Ranges are probably they're a little bit higher than something like D&D or Pathfinder ranges, but qualitatively, it's happening on about the same scale as those games. But everything is really built from the ground up to have that visceral, literal placing minis kind of aspect to it. Yeah, I mean, it as you mentioned, it does seem like a pretty massive investment to play this game, eh?
Yes, it's time and money. They're expensive minifigs, and none of them are assembled. Like, that's a big part of it. I cannot stress is putting together these tiny little figurines, and then also depending on like your terrain too, because you could buy terrain or build out sets. It's like it's a lifestyle.
I mean, after seeing the sets that Sam put together, I'm actually sorely tempted to learn how to put together some sets. I think it's a really cool concept, but also I have like no artistic abilities or manual dexterity.
Oh no.
Or creative vision, any of those things. And yeah, I mean, playing with the minis is just undeniably fun. It's cool to have something tactile like that.
Yeah.
And I think part of this game, even if you're never going to play it, I think it is cool to look through the basic rules, because like, even if you're literally never going to play it, the people who make Warhammer, which has been around since the late 80s, and it's gone through 9 or 10 revisions since then. But the people who make it have thought seriously about the idea of having big stacks of units out on the board, right? Mm-hmm. And this is something that, when you're thinking about most kind of epic fantasy type systems, anything like D&D or Pathfinder or anything like that has the Lord of the Rings DNA, mm-hmm. they're not always great at like big epic battles with like a dozen people in them, or with dozens of people in them, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so but Warhammer's thought that through. And I feel like a lot of the ways they've thought that through, like, your units have to do morale checks when they take damage, or people will get scared and run away, or you can have like a character move up on enemies in what's called a heroic intervention, which really kind of speeds up the movement aspect once you've placed everything. Battles can have secondary objectives, like you can partially win if you assassinate the leader of the bad guys, or if you do enough magic in the center of the battlefield, and things like that. They feel like they'd be fun to import into like a big end game battle, mm-hmm. right? Where, in your campaign, you want to have that epic scope, but you're playing in a system that really is meant for, a party of 5 people who are steadily getting more and more power. This is kind of a fun way to incorporate a whole bunch of allies or minions or something. You get what I mean? Yeah. In a big battle without having to roll initiative for 45 different people. The campaign I'm running right now is likely going to escalate towards a big climactic battle between 2 very large groups of allies and enemies, and I'm very likely going to be borrowing some of these rules.
Ooh.
Yeah,
D&D mixed with Warhammer.
Yeah, it's a 5th edition D&D campaign, but once we get into that end game, and there's going to be a lot of people on the board with a lot of different movement and attack styles, I think borrowing some of these rules is going to help streamline it, because for the last campaign I ran to completion, I just had like 60 people in the initiative order because I hadn't really thought through what that meant, and that meant a lot of my players sitting there like
watching you play a game,
watching me sweat profusely as I tried to figure out how to make it run faster midway through. Your allies, the mammoth herders, they're gonna take an attack on the great beasts in the north, and the players are like, okay, when's my turn? And 3 rounds later, I'm like, I'm just going to take the average for every damage roll. And so this seems like a nicer way to simplify things, and a less sweaty outcome. Anyway, let's to get a sense of what things look like beyond that one attack.
Yep.
That was a psychic ability called smite, which did a bunch of damage. But there is an ability you can use to deny it called Deny the Witch. And so now I'm going to roll. If you could pass me your incredibly heavy d6, I'm going to roll to see if I can deny that attack that you just did.
All right.
And I need to roll above a 10, I think. Ooh. 4? Okay. There's a 1 in 6 chance. No. I have to roll at least a 7 on the second one, which is, things are not looking good on a d6. 5. Okay, I completely failed to deny the witch. And only one attempt can be made to deny it, so guess my guy is stuck with those 3 mortal wounds from your attack.
Excellent.
Oh no. We've just talked about smite and the ability to deny it, and that's kind of like the default psychic power in this game. But part of the flavor, where there's this grimdark fantasy with just decades of lore, it means that there's a lot of psychic powers in the game that have very fun and weird and disparate flavor to them. So on one hand, there's the Eldar, who are kind of fantasy elves, but in space. And their powers have names like Embolden, which buffs allies, and Temporal Weave, which freezes enemies in place. And then on the other hand, there's the Orcs, and they just have Orcs in space, which I'm personally thrilled with, but whose casters are called Weird Boys, and they have powers like Here We Go, which transports orcs across the battlefield, and Gork'll Get 'em, which causes a giant green hand of a god named Gork to manifest somewhere on the battlefield to just squash the enemy. It's very fun. Like I feel like in a lot of games there's a temptation to have in the canon lore, you know, the different sides be like, well, these are all factions that are fundamentally vying for an understandable thing like power. And in this game, it's not that. There's not a lot of subtlety. These factions have very different vibes, and it's fun and honestly kind of campy.
Ooh.
Yeah. You know, and I think that's maybe another aspect that would be fun to incorporate into your home game. Like, just embrace the idea that empires can be wildly different in tone in the same game.
Yeah, I really like the idea of like in campaign big battles, or having battles be switching over from D&D roleplay, then going on to a tabletop, and it turns into like generals commanding troops.
Yeah.
That would be a fun concept to incorporate into a campaign. Like you were saying, is like, are your players in your campaign going to be on the battlefield, that you will have a more economical way to manage like 90 opponents than having 90 initiative rolls for the enemies?
Right. Ideally, at the very least, the large mobs should move as groups.
But I was thinking if the players could control their own large mobs. I
think that would be a very cool way to do it. I think in Dimension 20, in the season of Crown of Candy, they actually do... it's Candy Game of Thrones. Yeah. Like, where all the people are candy. Or all the people are food, I guess, in general. They do something like this, actually, where, you know, the player characters all have these, like, incredible powers, but then they also have troops that are loyal to them that they get to move around. And this seems like a pretty good rule set to do that with.
Yeah.
And thank you for letting us use these minis. Even if these are not official Warhammer minis, you know, I feel like these would be good if we ever want to try implementing something like that in a home game.
Yeah. Well,
we'll link to the basic rules, I guess, for Warhammer in the show notes.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah. And that's it for this week.
I've been Jake behind the mic.
I'm Production Master Reilly.
And you don't need to make your players roll dice to remember basic facts about the world their PCs live in.
Do you run your own home game? Tell us about a cool homebrew, and we might feature it in an upcoming episode.
Give us a call and tell us about it at 724-320-2020.
Join us next week when we chat with Jake.
No relation.
About running a long campaign with friends spread across cities and time zones.
For more on the show, including links to all our social media, visit foldedfrequencies.com/campaignspotlight.